Dialectical behavior therapy was created in the 1980s by Marsha Linehan in Seattle, Washington.
Today, DBT is taught all over the world.
We're two therapists who believe everyone can benefit from DBT skills.
I'm Kate.
I'm Michelle.
And this is DBT and Me. Hello, everyone.
Hi, everybody.
Welcome to Q&A number 62. For those of you who are binge listening, I apologize because you're about to get a lot of the same information twice, which is to say both Michelle and I have some disclaimers. One, it's late and I might be slightly more punch drunk than usual. I am getting over being sick still, forever, apparently, and ever. Amen. And as you may have just heard, that is manifesting at the moment at there being just a tickle, just a little bit of phlegm right at the point in the back of my throat where it interferes with talking and makes me need to clear my throat incessantly. So first of all, blessings upon our editor because her job is going to suck for this one. And I apologize for all the stuff she can't edit out because it's in the middle of my talking. So that's my disclaimer. What about you, Michelle?
Yeah, my disclaimer, since we recorded Q&A 61 just before recording this one, I mentioned at the beginning of Q&A 61, I'm in a different room in my house than usual, still in that same room. The good news is my son is now asleep as we record Q&A 62. So there was a potential for maybe hearing some background noise from him last time, but he's asleep, so that's good. And the only thing that's going on is that my mother-in-law, who lives with us, she may be potentially interrupting at some point, but we're going to do our best to edit that out so that you guys have no idea when she might come back to the house while I'm recording this.
Ghost mother-in-law.
Yes, ghost mother-in-law, who hopefully you won't hear any sound from that could interfere. But yeah, I mean, as Kate said, we're fitting in these Q&As where we can. We're not necessarily at 100%, but we're glad to be doing it for you guys. And we appreciate your patience with, again, things from the technical side maybe not being as good as they could be.
I like going through Q&As, though. I must admit, it's not a bad binge.
I like it, too. I like doing Q&As. And we have not been keeping up with them very well the last few months.
No, I know. I have some guilt.
Yeah.
I have some guilt.
So it's good to do a few.
You're on the first one. I like this one. It makes me happy.
Yeah. So this one says, does anyone else sometimes just wake up feeling defiant and ready to throw a fit? I have no new reason to be upset. Life is as usual with the same issues I had the day before, but I want to be mad. I struggle with this a lot, and it's hard to use the skills because I don't even know what I'm angry about.
Yes.
You feel seen. You feel
I absolutely have this happen, right? So does anybody else have this happen? Yes, I absolutely do. I will admit that sometimes I kind of wonder if I were dreaming something that made me super pissy and I just don't have any recollection of it. I know brains aren't necessarily always fantastic at knowing dreams from reality. So sometimes I wonder if that's in there. Or sometimes I figure that my brain/body have just chosen today to be a day that I feel the anger that it is always reasonable to be feeling about the injustices of the world. Sometimes I think that's fair. Sometimes that my body just goes, no, today we're doing it. Today we're having the feels about all of the icky stuff. So do that. Sometimes it's angry feels. Sometimes it's depressed feels. Sometimes it's anxiety feels. But I definitely suffer from free-floating feels with some regularity. I will say I get it being hard to use the skills because it might be like, well, how do I know how to address this best since I don't know exactly what it's coming from? That being said, don't fall into the trap necessarily of thinking that the why is the most important thing about the feeling. I can definitely fall into the trap of avoiding a feeling by trying to chase its why to the ends of the earth when that answer is just not mine to be given. So be careful about chasing the why. So yeah, just recognize that sometimes it's okay that it seems like it's coming from nowhere, right? While all emotions are caused, sometimes the causal chain is too complicated too subconscious, too happened in the middle of the night while we were sleeping. I don't know. Such that we're just never going to know the answer. Michelle has some really great ideas about what to do with the anger. So I'm excited about her ideas. I will just preface mine with saying a little bit of a different direction is like, what can you do with that anger? Is there anything that you might be able to harness it for? So, creative project, calling your senator about an important issue that you've been meaning to get more active about, cleaning out your closet, weeding your yard, going for a run, right? Like, anger is an emotion that has a lot of energy to it. And so, one idea is that you might be able to actually make something from your anger on those days that you wake up all fired up already and ready to throw a fit. So that was my thought.
Yeah. I like actually all of those tangible ideas you named of how anger can be channeled. That's really great because admittedly, I didn't give a lot of practical ideas in my response. I mostly just kind of wanted to take this approach of debunking, and you kind of, touched on this too a little bit of, I think sometimes people really do. They think, well, if I don't know why I'm feeling what I'm feeling, then I'm stuck. Then there's not much I can do about it. In this case, we're talking about the feeling of anger, but we could talk about any emotion where people may struggle with that and they think, I have to know the root of it. I have to know what's causing it to address it. And that's just not true. It's not true. So that's really what stood out to me about what this listener was talking about. And what I'm going to talk about, which of course we're here to talk about DBT, this is truly very much a DBT perspective, what I'm about to describe, which is that it is less about why you're feeling what you're feeling, and it's more about what is the urge behind what you're feeling, right? Dialectical behavior therapy. So to really highlight the B there, what DBT is going to care about most is that you are not acting on urges that could be destructive, right? You're not engaging in behaviors that could be damaging. Let the feeling be there. Because again, the feeling isn't bad or wrong. It's totally okay to feel angry. It's okay to feel a lot of anger. That's completely okay. It's just all about kind of the behavioral result, you could say, of that emotion and what it's urging you to do. So that's the thing I want you to focus on here, listener, is, okay, when I wake up and when I'm in that state of mind, what is the anger wanting me to do? If the anger is wanting you to go, I don't know, throw something at the wall, probably not the best approach to take, unless, again, you're able to do that in a safe way. I mean, you could probably throw a pillow at the wall and not do much damage or, something like that. But what is it wanting me to do? And is it safe and okay for me to act on that? Or do I need to use some opposite action and make a different choice of what to do with the anger? And that's why I really love your ideas, Kate. I had not read your notes, but hearing you describe all those, I'm like, yeah, great ideas, and all in line with opposite action. Because I think, and I don't have the handout in front of me of what DBT says the opposite action should be for anger. But what I will say is that I actually think when it comes to, like you mentioned, because anger has so much physical energy behind it, I don't think the best opposite action approach to take is to be like, so I'm going to sit really calmly and I'm going to try to be still and quiet. Yes, that is opposite, but I don't think that's effective opposite action. I think it is exactly what you were talking about, Kate, with all of those examples. Is no, it's harnessing that energy and it's putting it someplace productive and healthy, which can absolutely be, moving your body in some way, accomplishing a task. I cannot even tell you how many of my clients over the years have talked to me about rage cleaning. Yeah. Where they're just when I get pissed at someone, I just go and clean my whole house. And they think that's a problem that they do that. And I'm like, Good. Keep doing it. And they're like, really? And I'm like, yeah. It's not harmful to yourself, another person, or property. Do it. So that's the biggest thing. What's the anger telling you to do? Is that safe or is that not? If it's not, choose something else to do instead. The other thing though, because I do sense that this listener struggles with the not knowing, right? They don't know why they're so angry on any particular day. It's just something I think to kind of normalize and name that sometimes if you haven't been practicing please very well, that could take days to catch up to you. But that's often where my brain goes sometimes when people are like, I just woke up one day and I felt this way and I really couldn't figure out why. My brain kind of goes to, how have you been doing with please, like over the last week? How has that been? And oftentimes what comes out is like, oh, well, good point. I guess yesterday, yeah, I really did not eat very much at all. Or, oh yeah, I haven't been moving my body in ways that I would normally move it. Or that can sometimes be at least a piece of the puzzle. So it's really important to keep up on please skills. So I'm just going to plug that in there. Because if we don't, yes, they can simmer and then come out later in ways that are really, really hard to go back and connect the dots on. But please is a good one to make sure we're trying to pay attention to on a consistent basis. So those were my thoughts.
I like it. All right. This next one's short but sweet. It says, question?
It is very sweet. I like this.
I know. I like it. It says, question. I made a very good cope ahead plan, rehearsed it, etc. And it worked. But I'm wondering if there's a skill I can practice for after things go well. I struggle with things going well or positive things that happen in my life.
Yeah. Good for you, listener. That's amazing. It's amazing. I love hearing when people do skills and they work. Don't get me wrong. I appreciate hearing when people are like, I tried this and it didn't work because, yeah, DBT is really, really hard. When you have these moments like, yes, soak it in. So that was kind of where my brain went, actually. I was just thinking like, this is a wise mind moment. Whatever your cope ahead plan looked like, however you rehearsed it, however it went in real time, you were using your wise mind. I think it's very hard to use cope ahead without using wise mind. It's inherent in the cope ahead skill that you need to access your wise mind to plan for how you are going to cope with the challenging situation you are facing. So, I don't know, depending on whether or not you think this would fit for you, but I just really had this idea come to me of what I would suggest is that you close your eyes, you really sit with how it physically felt in that moment when you did your cope ahead plan and you acted on it, how that physically felt. And I want you to remember that physical feeling in your body, whatever comes up for you around that, because our bodies experience everything for better or worse. And to really be able to think about, gosh, how did I feel when I was acting effectively in this situation, and cement that so that you can come back to it the next time you're in a challenging situation. Just try to remember, oh yeah, I felt that in my chest, right? Or I just felt a calm wash over my whole body. How can I try to re-experience that physical sensation? Another way that you could also, really take this in, music is powerful too when it comes to memories. So if there's a song that you feel like really hits the nail on the head for how this experience was for you, pick a song and try to remember what that song is so that the next time you need to prep yourself for a challenging situation, you can listen to that song and your brain will basically be able to connect those neural pathways. I know for myself, I have a couple songs like this where I was doing healing work, like I was doing a hypnotherapy session, and at the end of the hypnotherapy session, the leader of it for me would play a song. And now anytime I hear those songs, I go back to that work I was doing, and that was 7 years ago. And I remember, like, oh yeah, I felt so amazing in that moment when that song was played for me. So music is powerful too. So think about a song that might also capture what this felt like.
All right, so you were talking about music, Michelle. I want to add to that smells, right? Scents can also really help cement memories for later access. So whether it's recalling a strong smell that was present at the actual event, or just right now pairing, like strongly recalling the event with a smell that you deliberately apply now, can help make that memory accessible again later more easily. You can also practice checking the facts as a way to validate that the happiness you're feeling is fitting the facts. When this person said that they struggle with positive events and things like that, I thought that maybe that might be part of the struggle, is this idea that maybe the happiness isn't appropriate, right? Maybe it's not deserved, right? Maybe it's something like that. So I thought this might be a place where we can use the sort of turning check the facts on its head just a little bit.
Yeah, like using it for joy.
Yeah,
People don't think that very often. Yeah.
No, right? So I thought that was one idea. Also, you could see, Michelle was talking a lot about like how things felt in your body. I thought a sort of an extension of that might be to notice what physical urges your happiness has. Like, how does that show up in your body, and see if you can indulge them, right? Maybe you want to jump up and down and yell and clap your hands. Maybe you want to roll down a grassy hill. I don't know, right? Maybe you want to sing and do a silly dance, but whatever it is, right? If you can, maybe you can embody your joy a little bit for a while, your success, your celebration of utilizing the skill the way you wanted to. And my last suggestion is to like repeat a positive phrase associated with the event. So you might, I don't know, I'm making shit up wholesale. Like, I practiced my skills and it went really well, right? Or something like that. And then just repeat the fuck out of it, right? That can be a way to help cement the truth, right? This is how this went down, right? Like, help your memory feel really solid, really grounded in this is how this went. I'm not making it up. I'm not aggrandizing it down the line, right? I used my skills and it went really well. So those are my ideas.
Yeah, really awesome ideas. Okay, this one reads, hi y'all. I have a gastroscopy. And then they explain that is an upper GI tract endoscopy. So it's a scope down the throat. Booked for Friday. The sedation they use, which is benzo plus fentanyl, leaves me fully conscious during the procedure, but I will have no memory of anything that happens between administration of the drug and coming out of the sedation. So probably for an hour or so. Apparently, people sometimes do or say really weird shit when they're sedated like this. I find the prospect of being interactive but not in control or fully present to be really creepy. Then they say this is luckily not stemming from any particular trauma or past medical procedure. I just had this scheduled yesterday, so my prep time is short. In a way, that's good that it's not looming, but I am inclined to avoid dealing with the feels around this and just hold my breath until it's in the past. Then they also say, as I write this, I'm getting increasingly anxious. I'm newly learning about DBT self-directed, so I'm wondering if anyone had suggestions on whether DBT skills might be helpful coming into this. I can think of a couple from what I've learned to date, like cope ahead and check the facts, but further suggestions are welcome.
Yes, absolutely. I like the skills already that this person is listed are great, right? Cope ahead especially, and check the facts. I don't know. I want to do hats off. Pat on the back.
I thought the same thing. I was like, spot on. You are the
spot
right
fucking on. Exactly. But I would add to that maybe doing some self-soothing, including while going into the appointment. I think we're awfully concerned with appearances at places and times when that is silly sauce. I have a teddy bear that I have often taken with me to major medical procedures. Hell, I do not know how they did this because it seems a little unsanitary. Maybe they took him back out again after I went to sleep. But on one of my major surgeries, my teddy bear was the last thing I saw in the OR before I went under, right? So seriously, bring some self-soothing, some comforting items with you. Blankets can be great, comfy sweaters, etc. These can all be nice things to bring with yourself to just have some comfort with you all the way up to and including the procedure. Also, since you've been doing check the facts and cope ahead, you might pick an object to be a kind of talisman or touchstone to remind you of the plan or of the facts, right? Humans are good at tactile basically tactile memory, right? So if while you're rehearsing your cope ahead, or while you're working, coming to a conclusion with check the facts, you might try holding on to something or focusing on something that you can take with you and literally touch, literally hold on to and see as you're going into the appointment, as a way to keep yourself grounded in your cope ahead plan and or in the facts. So yeah, haha, had to get it in there somewhere.
So hard to avoid entirely.
So difficult.
Yeah, no, that's great. Bringing in some self-soothing stuff. I do like that idea. My brain also went a little bit in the distress tolerance direction, because this is a perfect distress tolerance situation. Right?
Yep.
This is happening. It is creating distress. We talk a lot of times about how distress tolerance skills are perfect when you're dealing with things that are outside of your control. Even though, yes, I mean, of course, we could look at it in this way of, well, the listener is choosing this medical procedure and stuff like that. I mean, yeah, when you're facing the option of doing this really necessary procedure versus, I'm not going to do it. I mean, this is the more effective choice, even if it's the one that brings up a lot of uncomfortable emotions that, yeah, now you're trying to cope with. So I went to accepts initially, again, in addition to cope ahead and check the facts, because I was like, yeah, those would probably be my first two. But I would say accepts could be another good one. I like Kate's idea of especially using self-soothing as much as you can while you are there. Like while it's happening, or, like while you're in the car or whatever it is, like make yourself as relaxed and comfortable as you can. I was thinking accepts may be helpful, kind of say like the morning of, like you're not at the clinic yet, that kind of a thing, but really picking something from accepts and using that as a distraction if you feel like you are having urges to back out, not do the thing. Or again, just if the fear just feels really, really overwhelming and you just need a break. You just need to get your mind onto something else. I think accepts could be helpful. And as with any DBT skill that we call a buffet DBT skill, which accepts certainly is, I mean, pick and choose what'll work for you. There's not a right or wrong thing to pick. Honestly, though, we don't normally go to this one. We talk about how this one can be very, very polarizing. Comparisons may actually not be a bad one here out of the options you have with accepts. Because if you are able to think about, okay, what if I weren't having this procedure done? Or if I can think about other people I know who have gone through challenging medical procedures and made it out the other side, and they've been okay, and like I could do it too. Or even strangers who I don't know have gone through the same thing. And okay, that actually could be pretty reassuring. Again, not to everybody, but I could imagine that maybe being a way that you could use the comparisons part of accepts. And also, I would say the creating a different emotional experience for yourself. Those could be two that might be particularly helpful. The other thing that I think is going to be important is afterwards. Have a plan for afterwards for how you can reward yourself, which might be coming back to some of the self-soothing stuff that Kate was talking about. I'm thinking, depending on what your recovery looks like after this, depending on what is realistic for your life, but trying to really have something that you can look forward to, even if it's not going to be for a couple days or that kind of a thing, to be like, you know what, I want to go out to my favorite restaurant, or I want to have a friend come over and hang out with me, or I'm going to watch a movie that I really like. Whatever it is, I think that can be important too on the back end after we do something that's really hard and scary, to then make sure that we are creating a pleasant experience for ourselves on the other side of that. To pat ourselves on the back in a way and to be like, yeah, I just really need to put aside maybe the things that I need to do or less pleasant things, and I need to just really take care of myself because I just did a hard thing, and really appreciate that I did a hard thing. So that was something else I was thinking of too.
I like that. That's sweet. All right, on to the last one. This one says, "Hello, I've been working my way through the podcast for several months now and trying to incorporate skills, especially around emotional regulation and interpersonal effectiveness. This was at my partner's suggestion. He is diagnosed with BPD and went through a DBT class as a young adult and found it life-changing. We've always been really solid and had great communication, but since moving states together and having new jobs and lifestyles, we've experienced a really problematic pattern of spiraling fights. We both have been feeling insecure, and I, in particular, have had trouble adjusting to the changes which have affected my sense of self, spiked my anxiety, and upset my general mental stability. I feel like I've made a lot of progress with how I manage my emotions. I did not grow up in an environment where healthy management and processing of emotions was a thing, and it's still really hard for me. But for him, maintaining inner peace is his absolute top priority, and it feels like no matter how hard I try, there are instances that my emotions get away from me and our conversations devolve, and he says he just can't handle the intense ups and downs. I don't want to hurt him or be unhealthy for him. Any tips for someone who can really struggle to manage intense emotions, especially within a relationship?"
Mm-hmm.
Go, Michelle!
Well, here I go. I guess it's so hard sometimes, right? Like when we get these emails from people because there's so much that we don't know. And so there's a lot that we kind of have to guess about, or sometimes I just have questions of like, well, I read that this listener is saying this, but what if it was actually this? That kind of a thing. So, I mean, what they're really getting at here, when we read this on paper, is it sounds like the listener's really taking on a lot of responsibility here. Right? Which it's good to take responsibility. It's good to own our stuff. But, they talk about like, I've really had trouble adjusting to the changes. So my anxiety's been up. And I just kind of get the sense that like they're kind of putting a little bit of the blame on themselves here for why the dynamic in their relationship is challenging right now. And the thing that was coming up for me is like, okay, maybe it really is true that, you are actually, like, to use one cliche expression, like, you're actually flying off the handlebars. Like, you are actually being, like, very irritable and, like, very short-tempered, which can be a way that anxiety shows up, let me tell you. You are snapping at your partner. You're having very little tolerance for things. Yes, it could be looking like that when you're saying that like your general mental stability has been upset. I don't know how you're acting, how you're behaving, how you're showing up in these situations. But I also was kind of wondering if what's truly just going on here is that the two of you are just having different experiences of this situation, right? Like, not that you're necessarily flying off the handlebars, not that he's necessarily flying off the handlebars, but just you each know you're having different experiences. And just knowing that is challenging. So I was kind of imagining this going of like, what's happening. And again, I don't know if this is actually what's happening, but I know this can sometimes happen, where even just telling your partner, I'm having a really hard time with blank. I felt really stressed today. Even just naming that super calmly, you're just saying that out loud of like, yeah, I'm really struggling with this. I'm having a hard time. Your behavior on point, right? You're not freaking out at them. Like you are calm as a cucumber. And even that can be very hard for people to hear and take in. Especially in a romantic relationship where for some people, even just knowing that their partner is stressed, it really sounds the alarm bells, even if you're not acting on that stress and you're not letting it take over how you're behaving. That can still very much be a thing that can start to lead to this dynamic. So I was just kind of thinking to start off with, I'm like, listener, I just want you to really check the facts for yourself. If you are actually having behaviors with your partner that you know are not healthy, then yes, that's something to check out. But if it's also just like, no, if I really look at it, I'm behaving in a healthy way. I'm just talking about my stress. I'm just letting it be known that I'm stressed. That's okay. And just because your partner may be having a hard time holding space for your stress, that doesn't mean that like you're doing anything wrong by just letting them know that it's there. So if it truly is that you are, again, kind of flying off the handlebars, as I put it, definitely turn to tip and stop. Those are really good skills I would recommend. But if it does just kind of feel like the conversations are devolving, as you put it, even when you're calm and you guys are just having a hard time hearing each other's struggles, then it would require a different approach, which is that you guys may both have to agree, like, okay, how do we let the other person know when we need a break in conversations, or how do we communicate when we're struggling with what the other person is sharing with us? Recognizing that the other person isn't doing anything wrong with what they're sharing, but how can I just be like, ooh, I'm having a hard time hearing you, right? You're not doing anything wrong, but it's still really hard for me to hear. What do I need to do to take care of myself so I can be present for you? And people oftentimes, I think, struggle with that in relationships. It's very easy to point the finger at the other person and to be like, well, I'm struggling because of this thing you just said. Rather than being like, oh, no, the thing you just said isn't bad or wrong, but yeah, it is hard for me to take in. And what does that say about me that it's hard to take in? So I don't know if I'm giving a whole lot of like necessarily super concrete suggestions here, but those are just kind of some of my reflections on the pattern that I'm hearing going on and what this listener is talking about, of like, yeah, you both are in a really stressful situation with moving. You both are having different responses to that move. And how do you get to a place where you make sure that you're both expressing that in a healthy way to each other and being able to tolerate, like, yeah, we're not always going to be on the same page, and that's okay. And are either of you actually acting in an unhealthy way with your stress? Hopefully not. And you guys are just able to kind of talk about it and hold space for the fact that you're on different pages with it. That would be my hope.
I like that. I admit, yeah, I was also a little bit like, woof, it depends a lot on what's being meant here.
Mm-hmm.
My personal, I'm projecting all over the place, prickles go up at the idea of maintaining inner peace is the top priority. I was like, oh man, that's not possible. It's like, who's peaceful all the time? What does that even mean? What is that expectation? Anyway, so that's my emotional projection, just vomiting all over everything. To kind of pick up where Michelle left off, Michelle was talking a bit about like taking breaks in the conversation, things like that. This is not DBT specific at all, but I am a huge fan of conversational safe words. If you're not at all familiar with that concept, basically the idea is that you and your conversational partner agree on a word or phrase that is not one you're just going to utter nonchalantly, and means, all right, the conversation ends this exact moment for us to take a break. Not it's over forever, but nobody says one last word. Nobody gets one more clarification, right? Nobody asks one more question. The conversation stops at the utterance of the safe words. And what you guys will have agreed on at some time outside of the conflict is what the word is. You'll agree on how much time you're going to take for that first break. I would say anything under 10 minutes is unlikely to be enough time for you to really change much emotionally. So I highly recommend 10 to 30, somewhere in there, depending on how, know yourself and how hard a time you have changing your emotions around. Like I would need one on the longer side. So yeah, pick a word, agree on how much time, and that you'll check in at the end of that time, no matter what, even if you don't feel ready to re-engage in the conversation yet, because then at least you'll set a new time. So for instance, if my partner and I had agreed on a 10-minute break, if at the end of 10 minutes I was like, nah, nope, not ready yet, I would still check in at the end of that 10 minutes and be like, hi, I love you. I know we agreed on coming back at 10 minutes. I need another 10 minutes, right? Let's check in again then. Right, so you're keeping communication open. Everybody knows what the expectations are, but everybody gets the chance to breathe and step away. Again, right, I think Michelle is so right about there being a big difference between your partner responding to you being, wildly emotionally demonstrative versus you just giving voice to your emotions. To the skills that Michelle listed already, if you are in the flying off the handlebars category of that, where you're being wildly emotionally demonstrative, I would also suggest riding the wave to tip and stop. Feel like I'm mentioning that a lot recently, but right, like breathe through it, right? Get through to the crest of the emotion and to the other side, right? To help you say fewer things you regret, right? I would, during breaks in the conversation, whatever the cause, whoever asks for the break, be it you or him, I suggest using self-soothing and or accepts, right? To help you get to a better emotional space to be able to rejoin the conversation. And if your partner is just responding to you expressing yourself, it might be time to bring in some dear man or some fast to describe what your needs or boundaries are around how you need conversations to go. So,
Yeah.
those were mine.
I was thinking about this, and I don't know why, because we've talked about this before. I mean, just you and I, but I think also very much on podcast episodes, you've talked through what you recommend for couples in terms of like pick a word. Yep, agree all the time. You know, something I think you mentioned before, a perfect thing to come back to for this listener and to talk through all the different steps. But I was really thinking about this time, and I was like, Kate is suggesting stop. But for couples, it truly is, like you said, when you're like, no,
true.
Pick a word. Once you say a word,
it's done.
Yeah, stop. Yeah, I was like, oh, it very much is that.
I hadn't thought about it that way before, but it 100% is. That's hilarious.
Stop, couple style. These are the steps that you guys can do. Follow Kate's directions. Yeah.
I like it. That's fun.
Definitely. Okay, well, we are all done with Q&A 62. The next Q&As we record after this will hopefully be, you know, more free of distractions and not so late at night.
And hopefully with less coughing. I want to be done being sick.
Hopefully Kate will feel better and I'll be back in my normal room and things will proceed as normal. But thank you for being here with us. And if you have questions, you can either email them to us at dbtmepodcast@gmail.com, or if you're a member of the Facebook group, post them there and you can get feedback from our wonderful community that we have of people that are
true. They're fantastic.
And have great suggestions all the time. So we'll see you guys for the next one soon.
See you next time.
To learn more about us and the DBT skills we're teaching each week, join our Facebook group. Simply log in to your Facebook profile and search for DBT and Me Podcast.